Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's K-E-S-H-W-A-N-I, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for GMAT. We have been solving GMAT math problems out of this book here, GMAT Review, the official guide, the 13th edition. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. Today is our lesson number 201. And the problem that we are about to solve is the one that you will find on page number 177. Please turn to page number 177, problem number 177. Listen carefully, please. Problem number 177 is something that we have already done. This is a redo. This is a redo. It has already been done. We did it on day number, we did it yesterday on day number 199. And what I explained on day 199 in yesterday's video is the fact that this is a, well, this is not something I have to tell you, you know this yourself. This is a very nasty algebraic problem. And when they give you a very nasty algebra problem in the exam, if you insist on solving them the proper way, the algebraic way, the orthodox way, the classical way, the geeky way, the nerdy way, the academic way, if you will find that it will take too long. And not only it will take too long, but there are too many chances of making some errors. The smart thing to do here is to convert this algebra problem into a very straightforward, simple arithmetic problem. The question is, how do you go about converting all the algebra problems in the exam into arithmetic problem? By using a technique called plugging in. By using a technique called plugging in. In the plugging in technique, we just make up numbers for the variables, and thereby we convert an algebra problem into arithmetic problem. That's all it is. We did that method already, as I said, on day number 199. Right now I'm going to actually redo the plugging in method first, and then we're going to do the classical method purely for learning purposes. Classical method is not something that I would advise you that you attempt during the exam. It will take too long. It will take too long, and there is a good chance you will end up making some sort of an error. So let's do plugging in method first, just so you have both of them in the same video and you're able to compare and contrast one after the other right away. So here's what's going on. They tell us that the price of stock went up by K%. Let's plug in a number for K. Since we're dealing with percentages, nice numbers to plug in here would be multiples of tens and hundreds. So we plugged in initially. We pretended that K was 10. K was 10. The price of stock, the initial price of stock, to start out with, we assume it was 100. So we have initial price of stock was 100. We assume that it went up by 10%, and therefore the new price is 110. New price is 110. Similarly, the next thing is earning per share. Again, we made up a numbers for earning per share. Earning per share, let's put in $10 for it, and then we are told that it went up by 5%. At that point, we realized yesterday that trying to figure out 5% of 10 is going to be annoying as hell. We're going to end up with half. We don't want that. 10% of 10 is 1, therefore 5% is going to be half. That will be annoying as hell to deal with. So you go back and fix your numbers. It's not a big deal. Just fix your number. It's very easy to fix. Just stick a zero everywhere. So let's pretend the initial price of the stock was $1,000. Therefore, the new price is going to be $1,100 because it went up by 10%. Initial earning was 100. Now it's 105. Well, so the initial ratio, which is the initial price over the initial earning, is simply 1,000 over 100, which is 10. The new ratio is simply 1,100, the new price, over the new earnings, which is 105. Now this is where the prickly bit comes in. This is where you have to be creative, because you have to somehow figure out how much bigger is this quantity compared to 10. This quantity is how much bigger than 10, and instead of trying to do it manually and try to figure out what that works out to be, here's the quicker way. 1100 that you see on the top can be written as 1050 plus 50 over 150. Now we realize that 1050 over 105 is simply 10. It is simply 10. Because it simply has a 0 in front of it. It just says 0. So the top quantity, 1050, is 10 times 105. So if you were to write this as 10 plus if you were to write this as 1050 over 105 plus 50 over 105, there you go. This represents the 10 that you started out with. This represents the 10. That was the initial ratio, 10. And the question is, how much higher is the new ratio compared to old ratio? Well, this is your old ratio, and the new ratio is this much higher. This much higher, 50 over 105. That's how much it is higher. So now the question boils down to, this is what it boils down to. All we have to answer is this quantity here, 50 over 105 is what percentage of 10? And if we can answer that question, we are home free. Let's do it. Even this is taking some time because I have to explain everything. That's all it is. It's not a big deal. 50 over 105 is means equal. What is your unknown? And then the percent means over 100. That's what percent means. The word percent literally means per 100. So 5% is 5 over 100. 7% is 7 over 100. 3.7% is 3.7 over 100. Therefore, x percent is simply x over 100. Of means times, and then 10. There is the question. We solve this thing for x, and x would equal to 50 times 100 over 105 times 10. We can knock out this 10 with the 50, and our final answer is 5 times 100 over 105. We're going to leave it like that in that form. We're not going to reduce this thing, because if you look at the answer choices, you realize that there is 100 appearing in almost every answer choice. 100 is everywhere, with the exception of the first two answer choices. Because 100 actually appears in the answer choice, I'm going to leave it like that. At the end, if it turns out that it is absolutely necessary to reduce it, we'll reduce it. For the time being, let's just leave it like that. Also notice that the question was, by what percentage did the ratio go up? And that's what it is. The ratio actually went up by this much amount. This is the amount by which it went up. And now the question is, this amount is what percentage of 10? So the what part is this. This is the what part. Sorry. The what part is this x guy. That is the what part right here. So that turns out with this guy. So this is, if you were to replace this quantity here, it will read as that percentage. This is a percentage. This amount is a percentage. So let's look at the answer choice. We're going to go through the answer choice. Wherever we see k, oh, I did not make a note here. This is k and this is m. Wherever we see k, we're going to replace it with 10. Wherever we see m, we're going to replace it with 5. Until what happens? Until we find something that matches our punchline. This is our punchline. This is our answer. This is our punchline. I don't know how to spell punchline. Let's look at A. A says k over m. K over m. K is 10, m is 5, that's just 2. That's definitely, that looks nothing like this, that's not the answer. B says k minus m. K minus m, it's just going to be 10 minus 5. That's not it, that's just 5. Let's look at C. C says 100 times k minus m, let's do C over here. C says 100 times k minus m over 100 plus k. 100 plus k. Make sure you pay attention and keep your k's and m separate. So 100 minus k minus m, that is 10 minus 5, which is 5. So on the top we get 5 times 100. There you go. 5 times 100. It matches the top. If it matches the bottom, we are done. 100 plus k, k is 10. 100 plus k would give us 110. We don't have 110 at the bottom, we have 105. This is k, which is 10, we need 5. If we can find some answer choice which gives you 100 over m, we'll be all set. C is not the answer. Let's look at D. D says 100 times k minus m over 100 plus m. What do you know? 100 plus m. So 100 times k minus m is going to be 5 over 100 plus a 5, which is your 105 right here. Therefore D is the answer. There you go. This is one way of doing this thing where we obviate the usage of any kind of algebra. We did not use algebra at all. We solved this thing as a simple arithmetic problem. It is a simple arithmetic problem because what we are told in this problem is that the price of the stock went up from $100 or from $1,000 to $1,100. It went up by 10%. We are told that the earnings per share went up by 5% from 100 to 105. You see how simple it is? Simple arithmetic problem. The old ratio was 10. The new ratio was 1100 over 105. You figure out how much this quantity is bigger compared to the original ratio of 10, which turns out to be 105 over whatever it was, 105 over, sorry, 50 over 105. And now the question is, this quantity, this increase in the absolute amount of ratio, this is the increase in the ratio. That is what percentage of the original ratio. That's how we find the percentage change. And that's it. You do your calculation, you get your answer. That's it. No algebra at all. Now let's start the algebra. If you give me 1 second, I need to grab my cup here. I'm still here. Alright. Let's start the algebraic way. The classical way. The classical way is something that if your math teacher were to get hold of your work, he or she would be mighty proud of it. Alas, your math teacher will never look at the damn thing, so let's not worry about it. We won't do this thing in the exam. This is purely, as I said, out of curiosity, purely for the learning purposes, so that we can appreciate the difference between the plugging in method and what waits for us in the classical method. This is only for those people who can brook it. Only for those people who can brook it. If you're one of those people who can tolerate some algebra, if you can handle it, if you can stomach it, if you can tolerate it, if you can brook it, it is only for you. Others should not try this thing. Let's do it then. By the way, since I put down the word, let's find out when we learned this word in our vocabulary lesson. In addition to the math video that you're watching, if you're interested in improving your vocabulary, you can go to my channel and look at some vocabulary videos and see if they are worth your time. The word brook is something that we learned on day number 4 actually. Day number 4, which means to be able to tolerate something, to be able to handle something, to be able to stomach something. Day 4, just type in vocabulary, day 4, along with my name, it will pop right up. You will learn that word and you will learn some other interesting word. Let's do the algebra, shall we? Enough of the talk. Let's do the algebra. I need a lot of room. So here's our original ratio. The initial ratio is simply the initial price over the initial earnings. The new ratio is going to be the original price times the increase, k%. That's the new price, because P0 times 1 is going to give you the original price, and this is the k% increase in the price of the stock. Similarly, the old earnings times 1 plus m over 100. That's how you would show the new earnings ratio. Let's simplify this thing. If we take the common denominator of 10 on both sides, we'll end up with P0 times 100 plus k over E0 times 100 plus an m. And the 100 from the bottom here and 100 from the bottom here will drop out. I'm not going to show every single steps, because if that's what you need, if you need to be able to see every single minute detail, then you're not meant for it. Just don't worry about it. I don't mean that in a condescending way, but one has to be pragmatic, one has to be realist. Do you understand? So that's it, that's our new ratio. So the difference between our new ratio, which is this quantity, and the old ratio would simply be P0 over E0 times 100 plus a k over 100 plus m. I changed the form of the parentheses, it really doesn't matter. Minus P0 over E0. Let's take them out. Common. taking it out common right now actually is not going to help anything. I changed my mind. That's not going to get us anywhere. Let's find the common denominator. Let's find the common denominator, which is E0 times 100 plus m. And on the top you have P0 times 100 plus a k. And then we have minus, right here minus, P0 times 100 plus m. Because 100 plus m did not exist here, so if you were to divide this quantity E0 times 100 plus m by E0, you'll get, what I'm saying is this, E0, N-A-U-G-H-T. That's how one reads it. One does not read that as E0, it is to be read as E0, not as in cipher, as in zero, as in nothing, nada, as in cipher, zero. That's the proper way to read this thing. This is how it is read. P0, E0, K0. So that's it. Let's continue this thing on the top. Let's continue this thing. We're going to pick this up. We're going to pick up this thing on the top, and we're going to take out the P0 common. If we take out the P0 common, we end up inside 100 plus K minus 100 plus M, and on the bottom we have E0 times 100 plus M. Let's open the parentheses then. Let's open these two parentheses. We open the parentheses, we end up with P0 times 100 plus K minus 100 minus M over E0 over 100 plus M. Negative 100 and a positive 100 will drop out, and we end up on the top P0 times K minus M over E0 over 100 plus M. This is what the ratio boils down to. This is the new ratio, or rather this is the difference in the two ratios. Difference or increase in the ratio. Which ratio? The price earning ratio. The price earning ratio. This is the increase, because remember we got to this thing by taking the new amount, the new ratio, and we subtracted the initial ratio, which was P0 over E0. So this is the difference or the increase in the ratio. The question simply is, this quantity that we arrived at, the question simply is, what is this quantity? P0 over E0 times K minus M over 100 plus M is what percent of the original ratio. Voila! This is the change here, this is the change in the ratio, and the question is, that change is what percentage of the original ratio, just like before, except when we were dealing with numbers, here we had, what did we have here, do we remember? Here we had 50 over 105. This quantity that you see here was 50 over 105 when we did with numbers. And here we had simply had 10. And the question was 50 over 105 is what percentage of 10? But now we don't have numbers. We're dealing in an abstract manner, purely abstract method. That's what algebra is. Let's continue then. So the question is, this quantity that we see here is what percentage of the original ratio, which is same as saying P0 over E0 times K minus M over 100 plus M is means equal, what is your X, percent means over 100, of means times, multiply, and then P0 over E0. Now all we have to do is solve for the X. Let's do it. The very first thing we notice is that on this side we see this P0 over E0, on this side we see P0 over E0, that drops out. And we just solve for X, which means simply to multiply this quantity by 100. So our x there, which is the percentage change, is simply 100 times k minus m over 100 plus n. Voila! By golly. We arrived here, luckily for us, without any accidents, without any boo-boo. Now, having watched it in its entirety, you probably would understand why I was insisting that you do not try this on the real exam. Even for somebody who is very conversant in algebra, I would not recommend it. What does it mean to be conversant in this context? I'm curious. I'm sure we learned it somewhere. What does it mean to be conversant at something? It just means to be skilled at something, to be good at something. So even if you're very good at algebra, it is something that I would not recommend you try doing, because there are too many steps involved, and just it's impossible to keep track of this thing in a short period of time when you're trying to solve a problem in a couple of minutes. You understand? Stick with plugging in. Just plug in nice numbers. If the numbers don't work, you see, when you're starting out with the plugging in technique, when you're plugging in numbers for the variables, you really have no way of knowing how the whole thing is going to pan out. If the numbers don't work, change them. Don't sit there and cry. Just change the numbers and start again. You understand? Like in the plugging in method that we did here, initially I started out with the earnings of $10 per share. And then I went on and I read the problem and I realized that I had to go by a certain percentage. And we had plugged in 5 for that, for the percentage part. Well, it's kind of annoying to raise 10 by 5%. So we change everything, multiply everything by 10 and make the whole problem multiple of 10, and then off you go on your jolly way. Do you understand? Anyway, this was it. I hope you had fun. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye now.